If you're driving on Australian roads right now, you need to hear this because the road rules have changed dramatically in 2026, and drivers are getting absolutely hammered with fines of over $1,200, losing their licenses on the spot, and getting caught by new AI-powered cameras that can detect violations from a kilometer away without you even knowing you were photographed. We're talking about mobile phone detection cameras that are now operating 24/7 across every state. New average speed camera networks that track your speed between 2 points to catch people who slow down for cameras, then speed up again. Updated giveaway rules at roundabouts and intersections that have changed who has right-of-way. Massively increased penalties for school zone speeding that now include instant license suspension for repeat offenders, and new distraction laws that make it illegal to eat, drink, or even adjust your air conditioning while driving if it affects your control of the vehicle. Police are running targeted blitzes specifically to catch drivers who don't know about these rule changes, and the courts are showing zero leniency, even for first-time offenders who genuinely didn't know the rules had changed. If you don't know exactly what's different in 2026, you're at serious risk of losing your license, copping massive fines, and potentially facing criminal charges for what you thought were minor violations. Welcome back to the channel, and if this is your first time here, this is where we break down Australian road rules, traffic laws, licensing requirements, and all the regulatory changes that affect drivers across Australia. I cut through the confusion and give you clear, practical information based on actual legislation and enforcement practices, not rumors or outdated information. Before we dive into these critical 2026 road rule changes, make sure you smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because road rules and enforcement practices change regularly across different states and territories, and missing even one major update could cost you your license or thousands of dollars in fines. Now let's get straight into the major road rule changes for 2026, because these updates are significant, and they're being enforced aggressively right across Australia. The first and biggest change that's catching the most drivers is the expansion of mobile phone detection cameras to operate continuously in all conditions, rather than just during limited enforcement periods. Every Australian state and territory now has mobile phone detection cameras that use artificial intelligence to scan every vehicle that passes and automatically identify drivers who are holding or using their phones. Here's how the 2026 mobile phone camera system works and why it's so effective at catching violations. The cameras use high-resolution imaging technology mounted on gantries, poles, or in mobile trailers. As vehicles pass underneath or by the camera, multiple photos are taken through the windscreen, capturing the driver and any passengers. The AI system analyzes these images, looking for specific patterns that indicate mobile phone use, such as a rectangular object held near the face, a hand positioned as if holding a phone, or arms positioned in ways consistent with texting or browsing. When the AI detects potential phone use, it flags the image for review by a human operator who confirms whether the driver was actually using their phone illegally. If confirmed, the system automatically generates an infringement notice that's mailed to the registered owner of the vehicle. The entire process happens without any police officer involvement, and without you ever knowing you were photographed until the fine arrives in the mail weeks later. The penalties for mobile phone use detected by these cameras are severe, and they've increased in 2026. In New South Wales, you're looking at a fine of $410 plus 5 demerit points, or 10 points during double demerit periods, which now run for longer periods throughout the year. In Victoria, it's $555 and 4 points. In Queensland, the fine has jumped to $1,161 and 4 points for using a phone while driving. Western Australia charges $500 and 4 points. South Australia is $640 and 3 points. Tasmania is $391 and 3 points. Northern Territory is $500 and 3 points. The ACT charges $598 and 3 points. What's particularly harsh in 2026 is that repeat offenders now face automatic license suspension even for camera-detected offenses. If you're caught using your phone by a camera and you've been caught once before in the previous 12 months by either camera or police, your license is automatically suspended for 3 months. You'll receive notification of the suspension by mail, and your license is canceled from the date specified in the notice. There's no court appearance, no opportunity to argue exceptional circumstances, and no ability to drive during the suspension period even for work or medical appointments. Let me clarify exactly what the cameras can detect and what counts as illegal mobile phone use under 2026 rules, because there's widespread confusion about this. The cameras can detect you holding a phone in your hand, regardless of whether you're actively using it. They can detect you touching a phone that's in a cradle or mount except for single touches to answer calls or control audio. They can detect phones resting on your lap or any part of your body. They can detect you looking down at your lap area where a phone might be. The AI is sophisticated enough to distinguish between phones and other objects like wallets, water bottles, or food items. Under 2026 rules, it's illegal to hold your phone in your hand for any reason while driving, even if the car is stationary at traffic lights or in traffic. It's illegal to touch your phone while it's in a cradle, except for a single touch to answer or end a call, or to play or pause audio. It's illegal to rest your phone anywhere on your body. It's illegal to use any phone functions except audio calls and audio navigation while the vehicle is moving. The only time you can freely use your phone is when you've completely pulled off the road, turned the engine off, and are legally parked. The second major 2026 change involves average speed camera networks that have been deployed on major highways and motorways across multiple states. Unlike traditional point-to-point speed cameras that measure your speed at a single location, average speed cameras work in pairs or networks to measure your average speed over a distance of several kilometers. This technology completely eliminates the effectiveness of slowing down for speed cameras, then speeding up again once you've passed them. Here's how average speed cameras work. When you pass the first camera in the network, it captures your license plate and records the exact time using GPS synchronized clocks. When you pass the second camera several kilometers down the road, it again captures your plate and records the time. The system calculates the distance between the two cameras, measures the time it took you to travel that distance, and calculates your average speed. If your average speed exceeds the speed limit for that section of road, you automatically receive an infringement notice. What makes average speed cameras particularly effective is that you cannot avoid them by slowing down briefly. Your average speed over the entire measured distance must be at or below the limit. If you drive at 120 kilometers per hour in a 110 zone for most of the distance, slowing to 105 for a few hundred meters won't help because your average will still be over the limit. The only way to avoid a fine is to maintain the speed limit or below for the entire distance between cameras. Average speed camera networks are now operating on the Hume Highway between Sydney and Melbourne, on the Bruce Highway in Queensland, on the Pacific Highway, on sections of the Princes Highway, and on various other major routes across Australia. More networks are being added throughout 2026, and drivers who are used to speeding between traditional speed cameras are getting caught in large numbers. The third major change involves updated road rules around roundabouts and intersections that have modified who has right-of-way in certain situations. The changes are designed to improve safety and traffic flow, but they're different from rules that have been in place for decades, which means many experienced drivers are violating the new rules without realizing it. At roundabouts in 2026, the key change involves vehicles already in the roundabout versus vehicles entering. The updated rule clarifies that vehicles already circulating in the roundabout always have absolute right-of-way over vehicles waiting to enter, regardless of which lane they're in. Previously, there was ambiguity about multi-lane roundabouts and whether vehicles in the outside lane had to give way to vehicles entering from their left. The 2026 rule makes it clear: if you're in the roundabout, you have right-of-way. If you're entering, you must give way to anything already circulating. At intersections with traffic lights, there are new rules about turning right on red arrows. In several states, it's now explicitly illegal to turn right on a red arrow even if the way is clear, whereas previously, some drivers treated red arrows the same as red lights where you could turn if safe. The 2026 rule is clear. A red arrow means stop and do not proceed under any circumstances. You must wait for a green arrow or green light before turning. There are also updated rules about give way at T intersections, where the previous give way to the right rule has been clarified. Vehicles on the continuing road have right-of-way over vehicles on the terminating road, regardless of whether the terminating road approaches from the right or left. This seems obvious, But there were situations at unusual T intersections where drivers were confused about who had priority. The 2026 rules eliminate that confusion. The fourth major change involves dramatically increased penalties for school zone speeding and extended school zone enforcement hours. School zones across Australia have become major enforcement priorities with zero tolerance for speeding violations. The fines for school zone speeding have increased substantially, and the operating hours for school zones have been extended in many areas. In New South Wales, school zones now operate from 8:00 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. to 4:00 p.m. on school days, and the cameras are programmed with school term calendars, so they know exactly which days are school days versus public holidays and school holidays. The cameras activate at exactly 8:00 a.m. to the second, and deactivate at exactly 9:30 a.m. If you enter a school zone at 8:59:55 a.m., doing 50 kilometers per hour and the clock ticks to 9:00 a.m. while you're in the zone, you'll receive a fine. The penalties for school zone speeding in 2026 are severe. In NS dollar, exceeding the school zone limit by more than 10 kilometers per hour results in a $410 fine and 4 demerit points during normal periods, or 8 points during double demerits. Exceeding by more than 20 kilometers per hour is $673 and 5 points normally, or 10 points during double demerits. In Victoria, school zone speeding starts at $370 and 1 point for minor exceedances and escalates to $1,064 and 8 points for speeds more than 25 kilometers per hour over the limit. What's new in 2026 is that school zone speeding violations now count toward the 3 strikes you're out automatic license suspension program in several states. If you're caught speeding in a school zone 3 times in 3 years, your license is automatically suspended for 6 months regardless of your demerit point balance. This is separate from the regular demerit point suspension system, and it applies specifically to school zone violations because they're considered particularly dangerous. The fifth major change involves new distraction laws that expand what can be considered distracted driving beyond just mobile phone use. In 2026, police have broader authority to issue fines for any behavior that they determine is affecting your ability to maintain proper control of your vehicle. This includes eating or drinking while driving if you're doing so in a way that requires you to take your hands off the wheel or your eyes off the road for extended periods. It includes adjusting vehicle controls like climate control, radio, or navigation systems if you're doing so in a way that diverts your attention from driving. The key test for distracted driving under the new rules is whether your behavior affected your proper control of the vehicle. This is inherently subjective and gives police significant discretion to determine what counts as distraction. If an officer observes you eating a hamburger while driving and they believe you are not maintaining proper control because you were using both hands to hold the food or you were looking down at your food rather than at the road, they can issue an infringement for driving without proper control of a vehicle. The fine is typically around $400 to $500 and 3 demerit points. This distraction rule is particularly controversial because what counts as proper control is not precisely defined, and different officers may have different interpretations. Some officers may consider any eating or drinking while driving to be distraction, while others may only intervene if they observe actual loss of control or dangerous driving. The safest approach is to avoid eating, drinking, or doing anything other than driving while your vehicle is moving. The sixth major change involves expanded drink driving and drug driving enforcement with new roadside testing technology. Random breath testing and random drug testing operations have been significantly increased in frequency and coverage. Police are now conducting operations at all times of day and night, including early morning operations to catch people who may still be over the limit from drinking the night before. The roadside drug testing technology has improved in 2026 to provide faster results and detect a wider range of substances. The test can now detect THC, methamphetamine, MDMA, cocaine, and several other drugs from a simple saliva swab. Results are available within minutes, and if you test positive, you face immediate license suspension, fines starting around $600 for first offense, and potentially criminal charges if you're significantly impaired. What many drivers don't understand about drug driving is that you can test positive days after using certain drugs even when you're no longer impaired. THC from cannabis can be detectable in saliva for 24 to 72 hours after use, depending on frequency of use and individual metabolism. This means you could be completely sober but still fail the roadside drug test and face the same penalties as someone who's actually impaired. The law doesn't distinguish between impairment and mere presence of the drug in your system. Let me talk about the seventh major change, which involves new rules about towing trailers, caravans, and boats. There are updated requirements for trailer registration, mandatory safety chains and breakaway systems, restrictions on what vehicles can tow, what weights, and new rules about load security. The penalties for non-compliant towing have increased substantially in 2026, with fines up to $5,500 for serious violations, like exceeding towing capacity or having unsecured loads. All trailers must now be registered in all states, whereas previously some states exempted certain types of trailers from registration requirements. The registration must be current, and the trailer must display registration plates. Trailers must have safety chains or cables properly attached with sufficient strength rating for the trailer's weight. Trailers over a certain weight must have breakaway braking systems that activate if the trailer separates from the towing vehicle. Load security requirements have been tightened with specific rules about how loads must be restrained, what types of tie-downs are acceptable, and how much overhang is permitted. Police are conducting targeted operations checking trailers and issuing defect notices and fines for non-compliance. If your trailer or load doesn't meet the requirements, your vehicle can be grounded on the spot, meaning you cannot drive it until the issues are rectified. Now let me explain what you need to do as a driver to comply with these 2026 road rules and avoid the fines, points, and license suspension risks. First, invest in a quality phone holder that properly secures your phone to your dashboard or windscreen in a position that doesn't obstruct your view. Make sure the mount is legal in your state, as some jurisdictions restrict placement. Set up all your navigation, music, and other phone functions before you start driving, and don't touch your phone while the vehicle is moving, except for single permitted touches. Second, be extremely vigilant about speed limits, especially in school zones and variable speed limit areas. When you see a school zone sign, immediately slow to 40 kilometers per hour and maintain that speed until you see the end of school zone sign. Don't accelerate early thinking you're almost through the zone because the cameras operate right up to the end point. Third, maintain legal following distances behind other vehicles. Don't tailgate or drive too close. The 3-second rule is a good guideline. Choose a fixed point on the road, and when the vehicle ahead passes it, count 3 seconds before your vehicle reaches the same point. In wet weather or poor conditions, increase this to 4 or 5 seconds. Fourth, come to complete stops at stop signs and red lights. Rolling stops are illegal, and cameras and police specifically watch for this violation. Your vehicle must come to a complete stop with zero forward movement before proceeding. Fifth, avoid any activities while driving that could be considered distracted driving. Don't eat, don't drink, don't adjust controls unnecessarily, and keep your full attention on the road. If you need to eat, drink, make phone calls, or do anything else, pull over safely and completely stop before doing it. Sixth, if you're going to drink alcohol or use any drugs including cannabis, don't drive for at least 24 hours and preferably 48 hours. The only safe blood alcohol level is 0, and the only way to ensure you won't fail a drug test is complete abstinence for an extended period before driving. Seventh, ensure any trailers or loads you're towing are properly registered, equipped with required safety equipment, and loaded within legal limits. If you're not sure whether your setup is compliant, have it checked by a professional before traveling. Eighth, keep track of your demerit points. Most states have online services where you can check your current point balance and see any outstanding fines. If you're getting close to the suspension threshold, modify your behavior to avoid any further violations. I want to emphasize that these 2026 road rules are being enforced strictly and consistently across Australia. The days of police giving warnings for minor violations are largely over. If you break the rules, you will receive a fine and points, and if you're a repeat offender, you'll face license suspension. The best and only reliable strategy is to comply fully with all road rules at all times. If you found this comprehensive guide to Australia's 2026 road rules helpful, Please hit that like button and share this video with every driver you know. These rule changes are catching thousands of drivers off guard and costing them massive fines and their licenses. By sharing this information, you could save someone from serious financial and legal consequences. Drop a comment below and let me know if you have questions about any of these rules or if you've been caught by the new enforcement technology. Before I wrap up, make sure you're subscribed to this channel with notifications turned on. I regularly post updates about Australian road rules, traffic laws, licensing requirements, and enforcement practices. Road rules change frequently, and staying informed is your best protection against fines and license loss. Thank you so much for watching this critical breakdown of Australia's 2026 road rules. Remember, the major changes are 24/7 mobile phone detection cameras, with automatic suspension for repeat offenders, average speed camera networks that eliminate speeding between cameras, updated roundabout and intersection rules, massively increased school zone penalties with 3-strike suspension, expanded distraction laws, enhanced drink and drug driving enforcement, and stricter towing regulations. Drive safely, stay focused, follow all rules, and protect your license. I'll see you in the next video.